All right, I'm Max Hooley. I'm sitting here with Devin Coleman, Clarkie candidate for Worcester City Council at Large. Hello. Thank you for taking the time sitting down with us.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So first of all, I guess, who are you? Who is Devin Coleman? Explain who you are to the students.
So I am Devin Coleman. I was born and raised in New Hampshire, and when the time came to pick a college, I chose Clark, partially because of its character and a very generous financial aid package, but also because my family has a long history in the city. My great-grandfather was a typesetter for the T&G in the 30s and 40s. I've had aunts, uncles, grandparents live here. For whatever reason, my parents went to New Hampshire, and I decided to come back. And I like to remind people who question whether or not I'll be staying in the city that I'm not only running for families and residents of the city now, but I'm running to make the city better for my future family, because I do intend to stay.
Okay. Do you want to explain to people actually what the city council does and what the position that you're running for is actually responsible for, what the responsibilities are?
So the city council is made up of 11 councilors and the mayor. The mayor is the 11th councilor. It's a weak mayor system, so the mayor is more of a ceremonial and a figurehead position and an advocate position, and a liaison between the city and the state. And the city manager, who's hired by the city council, and I'll get into the city council structure in a second, is the one who handles the day-to-day. So then moving on to the councilors, there's 5 district councilors and 5 at large. There used to be 9 at large councilors, but the city came to realize that they were all coming from one area of the city, namely, this was way back, the very white areas and the very wealthy areas, because that was the only way you could do anything in an election was if you had a lot of money. So they broke it up. So now we have 5 district councilors. Clark is in District 4, and that extends Clark up to portions of Holy Cross and obviously all the areas in between. And then you have the district councilors' responsibilities are slightly different from the at-large. The district councilors handle neighborhood issues, issues of sidewalks, streets, potholes, safety concerns, streetlights, things like that. Of course, they vote on everything. The at-large councilors deal with citywide issues, so taxes, education, public transportation, insurance, health insurance provided by the city for municipal employees, and policy as it pertains to that. So there, like I said, there are 5 at-large councilors, and they all individually represent the whole city, which is interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how that works.
And why'd you decide to run for at-large and not just the district?
Well, I was thinking about district in the beginning, and I actually met with David Rushford, who's the city clerk. He pulled me aside and he said, "Hey, you might be thinking about running. Let's sit down and talk." And so we did. And he asked me why I was running district. And I said, well, it's smaller. I'm a first-time candidate. It's Clark's neighborhood. I think it makes sense. And he said, well, I would recommend you run at large, because if you run district, first of all, Barbara Haller, our district councilor, has been there so long, and she's made so many relationships over the years that it would be hard to nudge into that arena. Not only that, in a district race, you're going head-to-head. Whereas, and that's another, pertaining to elections at large, it's the top 6 vote getters, including the mayor, that are seated. So if you come in 6th, you still win.
Yeah.
Whereas in a district race, if you come in 2nd, you lose. And so all of those challenges that would have been working against me, plus the fact that in a first election, it would be hard to get out there and do the mudslinging that might be necessary to directly attack somebody and then create that stigma. So I went home and changed what I was running for.
Yeah, it must be tough trying to get your name out when there's already such an established candidate who's been here for so long.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
There is an interesting race, though, heating up in District 4. Soraya Rivera and Barbara Haller. And I don't take sides, but I'll be interested to see what happens.
Okay. Basically, why do you think you're qualified? And how did your experience at Clark make you feel like you were more qualified to run for city?
I think, I've always been very committed to community service, but I never felt like I was able to do enough. And I've always, from a really young age, like, I can't even remember when I started thinking this, that I wanted to be in politics and elective office. And there were stages I went through thinking, you know, the campaign's going to be the most fun. And then, you know, and time over Clark too, and I spent the semester in Washington, D.C., and that helped with everything and really to get into the nitty-gritty of what politics is, for me to find out, yes, I still want to do this.
And you worked for the DNC. I
did. I worked for the DNC. We did a little phone banking. I organized some of those for the midterm elections. Very, very contested, as you'll remember. And so over time, I came to see the campaign itself as just a vehicle to be able to do the public service that I wanted to do. And I think it was that sort of aha moment when I realized, oh, this is how you're supposed to feel in politics.
Yeah.
You know, the campaign is exciting and I love it and it's fun, and if you don't love it, you can't do it, because we do work 60, 70, 80 hours a week. But the goal is to be a public servant. And if that's not the goal, you should not be doing this.
What do you think are the biggest issues facing Worcester right now, and what would you do about it?
Well, I think the biggest issues right now are it's jobs, it's keeping people in their homes, public safety in certain neighborhoods. Certainly, Clark's neighborhood has a reputation, and we've all seen the timely warnings, and we've all, you know, had a friend who has either had something almost happen or had something happen. So public safety, and definitely education in the context of the public schools, and then also education in the context of the universities. So I'll speak to that one a little bit more too, because that pertains to the audience. So I actually just came from the Holy Cross voter registration drive, and it's something that I hope Clark will do. I've yet to get a definitive answer or really have someone open their door to the idea of it, but we're working on it.
That's surprising.
It is surprising. It was very surprising to me in the beginning. You know, I think to be pragmatic, it's a selling point for Clark. I think that, and this is understandable, that they may have been waiting for me to prove myself. I've done that, being the youngest ever candidate to make it through the primary. So, you know, we'll see where things go. But job creation and college student retention and the economic situation of the city, it all goes back to education. So early childhood education, an emphasis on that. A bottom-up approach as opposed to a top-down, integrating parents and teachers, the people who are working on the ground level, and understand how the system really works, as opposed to an administrative decision being made without any input, and that's happened before.
Yeah, especially in a place like Worcester with bilingual, you know,
Absolutely.
issues.
There's a lot of issues at play in the different neighborhoods, and every neighborhood is special when it comes to public education also.
Yeah.
So I think really going through it with a fine-tooth comb also, and figuring out what each school actually needs, you know, because according to the national standards, University Park Campus School is a failing school. Well, you know, it's in one of the tougher neighborhoods in the city, and over 90% of their graduates get into college. Right? That doesn't sound like a failing school to me. So, taking that model and seeing how we can apply that to other schools in the city. And then changing the goal from high school graduation to college admittance, and having the city work as hard as they can with public schools and with the universities to make sure that that can be the established goal. Because, you know, the days of going to school in a neighborhood, working in that neighborhood for the rest of your life, and retiring and getting great Social Security are done. Not only that, the industrial age of the United States is done. And this is what I told people at the drive today. I said, we need somebody on city council who knows what it's like to look for a job in a global job market. Nobody on city council does. They haven't had to look for a job for, you know, I don't want to even ballpark because I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's been a while, and some are retired.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of the older candidates and even a lot of the older voters don't want to hear that, you know, like you said, the industrial age in America is coming to a close. But
unfortunately,
when you're looking from our perspective, it's...
Yeah, unfortunately, you can't graduate high school, get a good job at a factory that you could put, you know, food on the table for your family and retire and get to relax. It's not going to happen. It's never going to happen again. So the city council needs to realize that We need to move out of the 20th century ideas and into the 21st century ideas. Also, incentivizing businesses to come into the city that are going to hire a more highly educated population, right? Because there's 10 colleges and universities in the city. And when you ask most of them, what are you doing after graduation? They say, I'm either going home or I'm going to Boston. You say, why? They say, what is there for me here? We need to create the answer to that question. And we do that through various channels. One of them, though, is a TIF, which is a tax incentive. Now, UNUM, right, and these can be done the right way, but I'll give an example of what the city did it's a bad way. UNUM is a big company in the city, and they wanted to move UNUM down to City Square. So they gave them a TIF to build this new building in City Square. Theoretically, a good idea. When you really look at it, though, the city and the taxpayers are paying millions of dollars to move jobs in the city. Not bring jobs in, not create jobs. In my view, that's not what a TIF is for. A TIF is to attract new businesses.
Right.
So if there's a business that's going to come in and says, you know, I want first pickings at your college graduates, but I need a little help, absolutely give them a TIF. And that's going to get the ball rolling. And then other graduates say, well, you know, my friends who graduated got a job, and so I must be able to also. And that incentivizes more businesses to come in.
Right.
Also establishing a good connection between the city and the colleges and universities. So if a student at a university goes to the city hall and says, I want to do this project, I need your help, the city hall doesn't shoo them away and say, go back to your college or university and they'll help you. The city says, you know, let's open up channels of communication so that over the course of your 4 or 6 or whatever years, depending on, you know, what degree you're pursuing, the students get a real vested interest in the city, and it's only natural that that's going to incentivize them to stay.
Right. And having a young working population here would just attract so much.
Oh, absolutely.
So much more.
I mean, I can only imagine what the downtown would look like.
Yeah.
First of all, if we had decent public transportation, which is another issue.
Yeah.
You know, I think we are a driving city. Only 1.7% of the population, according to the last study, uses public transportation. However, those most in need find it hard to get, and those who don't need it complain about all the buses driving by.
Yeah.
So there's something that needs to be looked at there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, a bustling downtown with a large young professional population, absolutely possible. Yeah.
Do you live off campus?
I do.
Yeah. So that's.
I live at 919 Main Street, right across from Fantastics. So I do live off campus. Yeah.
Right. Because I was just wondering if you still must have to battle the perception that you're a student running for a city office.
Yeah. One of the things, I was quoted in Worcester magazine as saying, it doesn't matter how old you are if you know what you're talking about. And I think that's true. And we've gotten that. We've actually gotten that a lot. The phrase I've heard the most, you know, is we need new blood. In order to get on the ballot, you only need 300 signatures. We collected over 1,100, and I was there personally for every one of those signatures. And we did that for 2 reasons. The first was to show that we were serious. You know, again, battle the age question head on in the beginning, but also to show that people are ready for a different face on city council. And you know, over 1,100 signatures is 3 times more than any other candidate collected, including the mayor. And we haven't looked into it, but I believe it's more than anyone's collected in the history of the city. So clearly it shows commitment, but more importantly, it shows that people want something different because they are coming to completely understand the stagnation that's going on in city council and the results that that's having when their taxes go up and their water and sewer goes up and they're being asked just to pay more and more and more. And what services are being provided? Are their kids getting a good education? Do they feel safe in their neighborhood? In a lot of cases, the answer is no. So that's what needs to be addressed.
Yeah, and I know that you've made a big point in your campaign to say that you're more available and more open to have people come to you and talk to you. What kind of things are you planning to do if you get the position? As far as
I mean, it's everything from what you would expect, or at least what I would expect a city council to do, which is Facebook notifications, website updates, things like that. But that doesn't reach the whole population. I was in an interview with Neighbor to Neighbor the other day, And they actually asked me about that, and they said, what are you going to do for accessibility? And I said, well, all the emails I send out have my private cell phone number on them, and they will continue to, and I have no problem making that public. I plan on being a full-time city councilor, and that means that when someone in the city needs you, you need to be there for them. And I'm willing to take calls any hour of the day, middle of the night, because that's what I believe the job is, because it's a public service. And then also I think, Worcester's very culturally diverse, and so that involves integrating different languages. So translations for city websites, translations for my communications with the constituency, and so on.
Why should students get involved in your campaign, and if they want to, how can they?
Yeah, of course. I think I'll say the same thing to everybody in the collective community who's watching this that I said that got my campaign manager on board. And there's a funny story behind that, actually. I thought, it's a city campaign, it's going to be a lot of work, but I could probably manage the campaign myself and be a candidate. I went to a campaign training in Boston, came back saying, wow, I need a campaign manager, I'm not going to be able to do this on my own. And to put it into context, somebody pointed out to me that if I get elected, my constituency will be larger than a lot of state representatives' constituencies, just because of the way the districts are divided up. And so, I need a campaign manager. So I come back, and Robbie, my campaign manager, Robbie Mallock, he's standing outside my apartment because he lived in the same building. And I came up to him and I said, I just came back from a campaign training, I'm running for city council, and I wanted to ask if you were interested in being a part of a history-making campaign, and would you want to be able to say that you were an integral part in getting the youngest city councilor ever elected to the city council, and 10 years down the road, you can say, I really made a difference in the community, either where I still live or where I went to school, because you helped. And that's it, and we were talking about this off camera. I can't do it alone. I cannot do it alone. There's 180,000 people in the city. We go door to door, 8, 10, 12 hours a day sometimes. There's only so many doors you can knock on, and only so many people are home. So what we need is people who are dedicated, even just for 2 or 3 hours a week, who come out and say, I want to be part of my community. Because that's what this is, really, is about, is having a stake in the community.
All right, well, thanks for taking your time.
Yeah, of course.
So,
Thank you. I appreciate it.